Yes.
Get ready to take control of your own financial destiny. It's time to build your dream business. Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur.
This just got exciting.
With your host, Spider Graham. Your education starts now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the broadcast. This is Spider Graham, and this week I want to talk about how the way we approach other people can really make a big difference in how successful we are. Now, once again, we're going to start from the premise that this is pretty much a no-brainer. One of the things I run into, especially when I do sales training, is how surprised people often are when I describe to them that one of the huge fundamentals of any successful sales relationship is just that. It's about the relationship. It's really about making friends with people so that they will become your clients, your customers. And a lot of people really look at this like there's some magical types of things that you should do, some formulas that you should run. And so much of what we do in business to be successful really falls back on just being a good person, being a good friend. So a couple of things I want to talk today about are how we get there and what it really means in the long run to cultivate these relationships. Let's start with the basics of how we talk with other people for a moment. There's a great adage, and you probably run into it somewhere in your life, that says we have two ears and one mouth, and we should use them in that exact same ratio. And the reality for most of us, especially people in sales, is that they really want to talk about themselves. They really want to talk about what they think and how they see the world, because let's face it, we spend 24/7 in our own heads, and we have a lot of knowledge about ourselves and how we see the world, etc. But when you're talking to other people, they kind of want to go there too. So if you work in sales, one of the things that's very important to do is to focus on listening as much as possible for a couple of reasons. First of all, it makes other people feel comfortable around you to have someone that they can talk to. But secondarily, and especially in the sales situation, what's really important is being able to know what the person you're talking to really wants or needs in their world. I often think of the way we approach sales as very similar to how a doctor-patient relationship should work. In a doctor-patient relationship, the doctor doesn't come into a room and shake the patient's hand and say, here, I have some medicine for you. Let me tell you what we're going to do. Instead, the doctor sits down with the patient and says, what's the problem? Where does it hurt? What are the problems so I can help find a solution? And after going through some sort of discourse, some conversation, they're able to get to the core of what it is that the patient needs and then can act accordingly. So this is a necessary part of being a doctor, but it's also the necessary part about being in sales. To walk into a situation, and I've noticed this in the past working with consultants and also as a consultant, you don't walk in the door and say, hey, I have a solution for you right here. You have to walk in, first of all, and say, what's the problem? Let's talk, let's get a better sense of what your needs are so that we can plan accordingly and give you something that you can work with. So this is obviously an important part of any type of business relationship. But it's also an important part of how we communicate as people. Now, one of the other things with regard to sales is that people buy from people they know, they like, and they trust. Now, when we talk about selling a brand, it's the same thing. That brand takes on a persona. I buy from a company that I know, I like, and I trust. I buy a brand that I'm familiar with, that I like, and I trust. I've had good experiences with, whatever. So past history. But if you're trying to sell to someone who doesn't even know who you are, it's a very difficult thing to do. And it's the model we've always referred to as the buy my crap model, where, okay, well, I have a brand, I have a website, I have a commercial, whatever it is, and I want people to buy my stuff because it's good. Okay, well, the product might be saying it's good, but the consumer doesn't know who you are, they don't like you yet, and they probably don't trust you because you're an advertiser. And most advertisers have skin in the game, don't they? Yeah, of course I want you to buy my stuff because when you do, I make money. All right, makes sense. So once again, the relationship that we jump into with somebody who we're trying to sell to is that, first of all, it's not enough to have a product or service for sale. We still need to get them to know us, to like us, and to trust us before they're going to do anything. One of the future podcasts, and we'll also create a video to cover this, is talking about how the sales funnel works and how modern sales funnels are slightly different from the traditional AIDA sales funnel. If you're not familiar with sales funnels, we'll do something in the future. You can certainly look up to get a sense. But the basic premise of a sales funnel is not every consumer is in the same place. Not every consumer is willing to say, hey, I'm ready to buy. Some consumers are at the very top of the funnel where they're saying, what is this company? I've never heard of them before. What is it they sell? Other people are in the middle of the funnel saying, I'm interested, but I'm not ready to move just yet. So there are all these different aspects of where a consumer is with regard to their readiness to buy and, once again, how well they like, know, and trust the person that they're buying from, the company that they're buying from. And that's a big part of the sales funnel as well. So how do we deal with this? Well, a big part, of course, is in our marketing. Now, sales and marketing has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. Not that long ago, sales was considered to be a rather pushy business where your job was to kind of browbeat people into buying your stuff. And by the way, that still goes on, but it's not as effective because most of us have also learned how to say no better than we used to once upon a time. And so being able to say, no, I'm not interested, I'm not buying from you, we're getting a little more forceful. So in order for you to sell to me, for example, you have to give me something other than scare me into it or bully me into it and let me decide for myself whether or not I like you and I feel confident that you're going to do something that's going to work out for me as well as for you, right? So how do we do this? Well, in a lot of ways, when we create a brand, a big part of it is making sure that we put our face on that brand, either as a company or as an individual selling that brand. Now, there are a lot of personalized type of brands out there as well, and there are also a lot of corporate brands. A lot of corporate brands have to go through the same process. They have to get the attention of people to let them know that they exist, first of all, which is general basic marketing. But on the top of that, we really have a sales element, which is, let me tell you why you want to do business with our company. Let me tell you why you want to buy this type of product from our company. We want to get you confident in understanding what's in it for you, right? Because at the end of the day, most consumers are really only thinking about what's in it for them. We all do this as consumers. If I give you my money, what do I get in return? Am I going to get something of fair trade, or am I going to have buyer's remorse in a few days because I feel like I got taken advantage of? So people are very cautious about that, and they don't necessarily buy right away. They're going to take some time to mull it over, decide if it's something they really need, but also to decide if they feel comfortable with your company or with the person who is representing the company. Now, for a lot of us in small business, we are the person representing the company. We're the person doing a lot of the things, and being able to get people to say, hey, I like you and I want to do business with you is a huge part of what brings us success. So keep in mind when you're talking to people that you need to help answer those questions. You need to constantly reinforce that you are not only likable and trustworthy, but you're competent. And this is an interesting place to be. Now, by the way, interesting experiment. I tried this several years ago, and I was impressed with how well it worked. We've all found ourselves on long airplane rides, and oftentimes you find yourself sitting next to a total stranger, right? And so in some cases, and I know you're probably like I am, there will be moments when you'll say, I really don't want to talk to anyone. I'm just going to sit here and listen to my music or something and stare out the window. And then there are other times when you say, hey, or whether you plan it or not, a conversation strikes up with the person next to you. And the next thing you know, you've been chatting for 3 hours with one another. So I'm on the plane and I'm talking with this woman, and I decided to see what it would be like to really not talk about myself at all. I really just wanted to ask her questions about what she did, her life, anything about her. And so I went into it very consciously that I didn't want to talk about myself to any great degree. Obviously, I'm responding to her questions and things like that to be polite, but I'm not leading the conversation back to, well, this is what I think. I'm constantly asking her questions about what she thinks instead. So it's about a 4-hour conversation that I have with this woman. It's a nice conversation. But at the end, she turns to me and she says, you know what? This is really one of the most amazing conversations I have ever had. Thank you. I didn't really do anything other than not talk about me. I let her talk about herself. And as a result, she enjoyed the process so much because that's really what she wanted to do. Now let's bring that back around to the idea of consumers. How do we get consumers to feel comfortable with what we're doing on their behalf? Well, a lot of what we're doing in interactive media, certainly in online media, is we're giving consumers a chance to learn more about who we are. We're not just putting up some slick copy and saying, buy my stuff. What we're saying is, hey, you want to learn a little something about who we are as a company? Here's a video. By the way, we're putting a very human face on what we do. Here we are in the office, and we're having fun. We're doing something really fun and goofy. A company I'm very supportive of that has done a lot of wonderful things, a software development company, has done really fun things over the years in their office, and they just videotape them and post them on their blog and other things. And it really helps to sell the idea of who these people are. And you get to know the people in a lot of ways, almost like they're minor celebrities, just because we get a chance to watch them being human. I remember and by the way, I don't recommend this necessarily, apparently it didn't turn out particularly well, but they decided it would be fun to have a frosting eating contest. Only 3 people participated, and they each had to eat an entire can of frosting, and whoever ate their can of frosting the fastest won. It was a funny video. By the way, apparently eating a can of frosting is really not all that much fun afterward. I'll just leave it at that. But the thing about it is, it's a harmless little thing. It's a slight diversion, but it says an awful lot about the personality of the company and the people who are making the software. And that's what's really cool about it. They put such a good human face on. And as a result, we have the tendency to start to like them even more, because we have the tendency to gravitate toward people who are just like me. We like people who are like us. When we make friends with people who are like us, people who share commonality. We have common values, we have common experiences, we have all these things in common. And now we find ourselves in a position where the company is trying to sell us something, and they're able to show that they're just like us. So when you go out there and you create a brand and you're trying to contact the people who are to be your customers, you need to keep the human face forward. You need to have conversations that ask them questions about what they want. And if you have information or anecdotes that allow you to share commonality, by all means, use it. Use it to create an experience that when someone gets to the end of this conversation or the end of reading your webpage or whatever it is, however you present the information, they say, I really like these people. That is such an important part of what makes sales work today. I like and trust you, and I feel like you're going to do something good for me. Okay? Anyway, that's the fundamental of it. Communicate like you're making friends with everyone you come in contact with, and you really are not going to go wrong. You're not going to win every heart and mind, but you're certainly going to get enough people to say, I'm not afraid of you anymore. I trust you not to hurt me. Here's my money. Let's do business together. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. Thank you so much once again for your time and attention. Come visit us on SpiderGram.com. Lots of good conversations, kind of like this one, and would love to have you join us and become a subscriber. This is SpiderGram. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you really soon.
For more free resources and advice for entrepreneurs, visit SpiderGram.com and become a subscriber today.